We be the Pequenati, the new Illuminati. We're to free your mind, your soul, and your body. They can't stop me, but they keep on trying. And keep denying that they got all of the eyes prying on our personal lives. As the lies unfold, truth is sitting around waiting for some truth to be told. But let it be known that we are hoes. Questioning that'll take you out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying I know there's no tone, but it kinda feels like going right into the club. While the shepherds fight the police to plot, the doomsayers debate about their doomsday plot. Some say it weren't a cult of believers, but how can you know when we're nothing but leaders? Can let think, man, you know that's the credo. We keeping that in mind everywhere that we go.
Day after day we open the doors of perception, finding more and more of the same deception. Armed as minds to unlock the hidden answers, interested in research, journalistic freelancers. Having left behind any more specific proposition, opened eyes perceiving through direct observation. Having left the realm of fairy tales and fiction, sharpened beaks pointing the right direction. Making use of the tools we have at hand to fight against ignorance across our land. Smashing absurdity with blue branches, uncovering idiocy and distributing pink branches. Separating the wheat from the chaff. Get tragedies, follow patterns and make us young. Badly acting human shields that randomly spawn. Making use of the tools we have at hand. Separating the wheat from the chaff. We do in fact call BS on your fabricated anecdotes. Moving on without you, not even leaving notes. Activating infinite potential, lying fallow. People waking up, speaking what they know. We recognize your fakes, empty the frames. We have looked through all your fancy games. Your green screen doesn't impress us anymore. Your fear tactics acting weaker despite fake gore. Not accepting faults that caught me thought cages. Thinking freely from our hearts, writing pages. Entries to the book of life, so keen. Walking a new passes and ends unseen.
Alright, that's PGA, Maddie Moses, Penguinati, produced by MVP Hardware Vandal and Terra Incognita. This is something you can find at infiniteplanesociety.com. I'm sending out a link right now, so just bear with me. I want to make sure that the people who are patrons are getting the notification when we go live. AJ206 says here, thank you for your endless hard work and dedication in the past 3 years. Appreciate that. And I feel the same way for all of you who've been here and contributing your thoughts, your input, your memes, music, and everything else. And yeah, this has been, this is our 3rd year as a steady podcast / think tank, not an echo chamber by any means. So let me go ahead and send out this notification. And I've made it real simple. InfinitePlaneSociety.com, InfinitePlaneRadio.com. Either of those links take you exactly where you need to be. It takes you straight to any of the numerous viewing options, and I no longer have to say the Y word. As I said I wouldn't. I said by 2020, we're going to be so independent from that platform that it's not really going to be necessary to even say their name. And why should you? Why advertise? Why advertise for the enemy? You can call it MSM Tube. I mean, and I used to make the argument that we have to encroach. We have to get on there and push back. And now that I think about it, no, we don't. What we need to do is create our best content on our own platforms, and then it'll encroach naturally as it grows organically and people share it. But there's no reason to try to meet them head on, because as you can see, they don't let you climb their pyramid unless you're one of them. I mean, it was actually 2 different back-to-back appeals I had, where they had a team of people assessing my channel deciding, nah, you can't monetize it. So I just kind of realized they aren't worth the effort, because they'll tear you down. They're book burners. In fact, a lot of what I'm doing right now is unburning. I'm taking my back archives, and some of you were here earlier today. I was playing December of 2017 predictions for the next year, and I'm going to do tomorrow, I'll do the same thing, December of 2018, where I predicted what would happen in 2019. So every day, though, I'm going to bring back several hours of burned books, burned videos, destroyed content, and I'm just going to republish it everywhere, and then it spreads to its permanent locations like BitChute and Library. But everything's pretty much automated, so we're ready to scale up in 2020. Really, nothing that we've created that they've censored or that has been taken down has been permanently lost, and so it's just a matter of aggregating it and organizing it, which we've been doing. And I'm not going to spend any time on this, but if you followed this channel for a couple of years and you know the issue we had with the cyber squatter slash DMCA abuser who shut down 60 some channels, that's coming to an end. So if you follow my personal blog, you'll get the updates on that. And basically I'm writing about this case as it evolves, because I think it's going to be a big story when it opens up, when the public gets their hands on it. Because what we have is probably one of the best examples of deliberate cyber squatting as a form of traffic piracy. Really interesting, but not what we're here to discuss today. Marty Moose says, "What's up, IPS and gang? I'll watch whatever platform you're on. YouTube's convenient, but I've downloaded others." Well, because YouTube's convenient and because they do have this way of already having integrated themselves into everybody's mind, is like the place to go. Everybody's trained on it. You're used to it. I can't expect everyone to jump. So I just say, I'll leave it open using Restream, so for your convenience, and then I'm using a module that puts all the chats from across the platforms into one place, so it doesn't even make a difference. Everybody can read everybody's comments. We're also on Float.app, which if you're not on Float, I use it it replaced Twitter and Facebook for me. Great collection of memes, great collection of people. It's not full of spam bots. And you can find that at infiniteplainradio.live if you want to get involved in Float, which I highly recommend. Okay, I sent out the notifications. So let's get started. Phones are going to be open. We can pretty much talk about anything. Rosie Bear says, "I'm kind of change challenged, but after 2 weeks on DLive, I have to say I like it better." Yeah, there's a few reasons why you might like it better. People who use the app, I think, have an even better experience, but it doesn't have any of the trolls, any of the drama. There aren't legions of unaccountable sock puppets that are actually government agents. It's kind of chill, but it doesn't have the same ability for content creators to upload and store their videos right away. You've got to obtain, I think, 1,000 subs, which is good. It's a quality control measure. So right now I'm at 710 or so. So once I get 1,000 subs, things will change. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel or followed it, whatever they call it, please do, and please share it. Alright, so let's see. Let's get into this. There are two different topics. Let's start with this one. No, we'll start with this one. More important. This is a question: will the Mandela effect withstand debate or scientific scrutiny? Because it's such an odd topic to have that inserted into flat Earth. Look, I was critical of mixing Bigfoot and the flat Earth topic. And it's not that I have anything against Bigfoot. I'm sure he's swell. My problem is that if you take the scientific methodology as your guide to debunk the mainstream science, and then at the same time you believe in things that are just impossible, that are metaphysical, that you cannot even provide evidence for, then it kind of says that you're selective about when you use the scientific method. I've said before that the dome itself is a pseudoscientific concept. The enclosed creationist model isn't even close to scientific, yet the people who push that will bash scientism all the time. So I think that we have to have some discernment here, or at least keep these things separate. So, for me, the Mandela effect just belongs in the occult section of the bookstore. Right there, sandwiched between Santeria and Wicca and The Secret. And that's pretty much it. And even then, at best, it suggests this power of manifestation, but the fact that it's based on collective agreement actually, to me, debunks it even as any authentic mystical experience. I think it's more of a parlor trick It's actually like a stage magic. But check this out. Now, Matty Moose says many flat earthers will cling to any conspiracies like chemtrails and Mandela. Yeah, chemtrails is another one of these things. I consider it to be a guardrail topic. I think the oligarchs prefer that everybody fears the sky. And so if you're on the political left, you fear climate change. If you're on the right, you fear God or missiles from North Korea. And if you're in the middle, you fear chemtrails. People who fear the wrath of God don't fear chemtrails. People who fear, as their primary thing, people who fear climate change don't fear chemtrails or God. It's just fascinating how it's so compartmentalized, but these are all just stories. Now, the Mandela effect is a bandwagon, and unlike other popular conspiracies that seem to have, look, there's nothing wrong with necessarily something becoming popular. It means there may be something to it. And so, for example, this topic of mud flood or recent resets and catastrophes, a buried civilization having happened more recently than any of us would, usually suspect. Like most people think if there's a flood or something, it happened before recorded history. But you have this theory that there was some type of a flood a couple centuries ago that was worldwide and resulted in the literal burial of a civilization that preceded us. World-spanning civilization. Anyway, I think that's interesting, and there's a lot to look at, but it's evidence-based, which is the only reason why I give it my time. There are people who take this topic and they augment it with stuff that you cannot find evidence for, which I do not agree with, and I'm quick to call that out, but really, to me, auto-hoaxing or deconstructing the fake news, this is something that requires a strict adherence to objective reality as your standard. And if you don't believe in objective reality, then how can you call something fake? It has to be fake relative to something real. And so what the Mandela effect does is it says that reality itself is therefore fake and shifty, that there is no objective reality. Other conspiracy theories may do the same, or they may make certain claims, but they're not in denial of reality itself. And so the flat earth theory is not reality denial, nor is the globe, for that matter. Whichever one is right. One of them is just an augmentation. They're adding stuff that is just more or less hypothetical. But no one is denying the existence of reality itself or positing that we're shifting timelines or that things have changed and that the evidence for it is collective misremembrance. No one can make the case that that is somehow falsifiable. And if it's not falsifiable, it's not science, which is fine. Like I said, I just classify the Mandela effect as sort of occultism. It's New Age. Which shouldn't surprise you considering its origins. A New Ager, a ghost hunter, a necromancer, Fiona Broomstick. I think she came from the Slytherin School of Hogwarts Academy for Witchcraft. So I'm just asking here, will the Mandela effect withstand debate or scrutiny? I don't think it will. So then the question is it going to run? Is the Mandela effect going to tuck tail and run? Or are they going to stand up and address the things that need to be addressed if you're going to make these bold claims? So the truth is out. Without the strategic use of logical fallacies, this Mandela effect cannot exist. And you can't really get around it. Making arguments from collective memory are not valid arguments. This is just more of everybody knows. Everybody knows is not a good argument. And every Mandela pusher literally starts off with that. Everybody knows it was this. Nope. Not everybody knows, and there's no systematic way for determining what is or what isn't a legitimate Mandela effect. For example, before I even go into this video by someone named Mies Kang, we came up with a list this morning, the Infinite Plane Society's top 10 Mandela effects for 2020. Now, we're coming up with more, so if you have any ideas, I think I only have 4 so far. So number one, Dolly had a bowl cut. Now, if you agree that Dolly had a bowl cut, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. If you don't remember the bowl cut, you're an NPC and a zombie. And put a 2 in the chat so we just get an idea of who's woke and who's not. Because that's what they do. They use the Mandela effect as a litmus test. They literally say, if you're not affected, well, you're just in denial and you're way behind us. And in 5 years, you're going to catch up and you're going to say, man, I wish I'd listened to you then. It really was Jiffy, not Jiff. Okay, I see 1 Post Globe Awareness, 1 X-Pac Z, 1 Marty Moose, 1 Post Globe Awareness. So all of you remember that Dolly had a bowl cut. Now, how many of you saw Moonraker more than 33 times? All of you. Yep. Well, there you go. Everybody knows Dolly had a bowl cut. That's number 1. Number 2, You'll Shoot Your Eyes Out, Kid, from A Christmas Story. Now, this one has angered some of the OG MEs who don't think that this is a valid Mandela effect. Now, if this one affects you, put a 1 in the chat. You'll shoot your eyes out, kid. Irascible as the old man can be, he is in fact the Grinch who saves Christmas for Ralphie by getting him his cherished Red Ryder BB gun. Everyone else, including the department store Santa, tells Ralphie, you'll shoot your eyes out. Plural. How many of you remember you'll shoot your eyes out? I see a bunch of 1s. Tim Osman, 1. Lean Dion, 1. Tim Truth says, I don't know who TF Dolly is. See, they don't give you an opt-out. You don't get one. It's an either or. That's how you know it's a double bind. It's an interrogator's technique for forcing a certain type of response. I mean, it is really a psyop, bro, if there ever was one. Tim Osman says, I remember it was eyes like it was yesterday, therefore it's a conspiracy. Yeah, absolutely. It's a conspiracy. Okay, phones are open 505-510-4226. And the topic right now is the Mandela effect. And I'm going through top 10 Infinite Plane Society Mandela effects for 2020. And then we're going to continue on, I think, what is a Mandela defector. Someone who no longer believes. Okay, Jift. How many of you remember Jift? Is it Jiff or Jiffy or neither? How many of you remember this? Jiffed. Alright, 1 if you remember Jift. If you remember Jiff or Jiffy, put a 2. And then 1 more, Jupiter's rings. How many of you remember Jupiter having rings? I think this is a legit Mandela effect. And this one's actually true. Jupiter does have rings. Xbox remembers it as Jiffy with a G. Jift. Most people are Jift. Okay, Jiffed. Okay, Rosie Bear remembers it as Jiff or Jiffy. Okay, so most of you here are from the same timeline as me. Alright, so we got Jupiter has rings, Jift peanut butter, You'll Shoot Your Eyes Out, Kid, and Dolly had a bowl cut. Now, we only just started this project this morning. It's still developing. So here's a link if you want to follow my blog. I try to keep my blog separate from everything else because it's kind of personal observations, and my opinions are my own. I don't want them to reflect poorly on the people around me. No reason for that. Okay, look. Mies Kang. So the truth is out. It's basically this. We know how the Mandela effect works. If you didn't know, you can read Mandoozled for free. Mandoozled, the Mandela effect debunked. Mandoozled is what the people who are affected by the Mandela effect call themselves. So they get caught up in it. They're like, damn, I can't remember. But for some reason, I'm pretty sure it's Berenstain. They find out that they agree with the people who don't agree with the masses, and then suddenly they're like, damn, I've been mandoozled. So this is a free ebook. I think it's been downloaded a few times in the last few days, so people are reading it. They're considering the ideas. And it starts off with Hitchens' razor. What can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. So I'd recommend that those of you who are mandoozled, like Brian Stavely and Karen B, although I don't think Karen B's actually mandoozled, I think she's faking it. She's faking Mandela-gasms just to, I guess, make it not so awkward for Brian. I don't know. Okay, let's get into this. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting piece. So let me go ahead and put this up here. So the guy's name is Mies Kang, and I was listening to him last night. I actually heard this guy on the live stream talking to Brian, and he said, hey, and this is Brian Stavely. Brian Stavely, who seems to have this idea that he can merge the Mandela effect and create a community of Mandela-affected flat earthers, and then turn their backs on anyone who's not Mandela-affected and call us zombies, NPCs, and worse. And we'll get into that, but I want to go into this first. So Mies Kang calls in. I'm going to read the video description first. He said, I called in to Unveiling This Realm with Brian Stavely and Karen B for the first time last night to ask Brian some questions about the Mandela effect. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to effectively communicate my points, so I made a video to clear them up. So I'm going to play this video. You know what? It's only 12 minutes, and I'm going to play it probably all the way through with a couple of breaks because it's worth hearing, and I'll put a link to the original.
Good afternoon, this is Mies. Wanted to make this video real quick just to clarify some of the points I was trying to make during my phone call to Brian and Karen on their show last night. We discussed the Mandela effect for a little bit, but I don't think I was able to properly convey or explain some of the things I was trying to say, and some of them I feel are...
Okay, let me go ahead and scoot forward. Okay, because he talks about his phone call and how it's really troubling, and then he gets into this idea of why he's kind of defecting from the Mandela effect's either or proposition.
Wrong about that belief or assertion or claim or however you want to phrase it. It is, even though it's extremely unlikely, it is still possible that somehow we're wrong with our observations about all these phenomena, and there could come evidence to prove the globe. NASA could decide to take us all up there to shut us the F up, finally, and we could see that it is a globe, and we would have to concede that, otherwise we would be delusional. So
he's making points about how even if your beliefs vary from the mainstream, if you're confronted with evidence, you would be delusional to reject the evidence. You would be making arguments from willful ignorance, which is pretty much what the Flat Earth community is doing. The conference earthers are shrouding themselves in ignorance on purpose. They're so edge-phobic that if you even mention the edge, they get super triggered. Like they're afraid you're going to push them off. They don't even want to talk about it. So Mies Kang here is just making the case that we need to be intellectually honest. I'm going to play another minute here.
That's what I'm saying. For this example, for Flat Earth, I need to be willing to concede the possibility that it's still a globe. So I was trying to ask Brian, are you willing to concede the possibility that you could be wrong about things actually changing? And as I said, I'm just hoping he heard me wrong. Unfortunately, there were some audio problems on his end, so what we ended up doing was sending the calls through Karen's computer, but it was like coming out of speakers and then getting picked up by her mic.
Okay, so he's talking about the mic errors they had when he called in, but here we go. Here's where he gets into the part where he thinks that the fact that Brian's not willing to make any concessions is the point where they're entering into intellectually being just dishonest. And this is what he is against.
Because if a person is not willing to make that concession, that is disturbing to me, because they're either being dishonest with you, or there's some kind of emotional thing getting in the way of them thinking rationally. Because
Boom. There's some kind of emotional thing in the way. And that's exactly what we're talking about. When you're mandoozled, it's because you've been given an either or double bind proposition. It really puts you in a position of having no opt-out. And so the answer that you reach for, the one that feels right, isn't necessarily the one that you deliberated over. When you respond to something in the moment, and marketers know this, if they can get you to make an emotional response immediately, even if it's wrong, you will rationalize it immediately after. And so once you've rationalized it, now you're basically defending something that's emotionally held. And that's why when you attack it intellectually, they do get kind of triggered. And as I showed you before, the Mandela affected who we're discussing tonight, who this guy is discussing, have made violent threats and a lot of weird, lewd comments. And we'll get into that later. But instead of addressing my critique, instead of reading the book, which I made free, it's called Mandoozled, The Mandela Effect Debunked. Instead of reading the book, they actually attacked me for writing books. So Karen said that I, quote, write books and sell them. And she was pretty angry about it. But my point is, why don't you read the book and try to debunk my debunk, instead of resorting to name calling and then outgrouping anyone who disagrees. Let's continue.
to just assert that physical reality is changing and say that you know that 100% for sure is strange. Because, leading into my next point, there's no proof for this. There's the other distinction that I wanted to make was when I was asking him if he would at least agree that there's nothing empirical we can grab onto with regard to this Mandela effect thing. And what I mean by that is choose any of these effects that you like. With each and every single one of them, at some point, it comes down to fallible human memory. And us having to trust that what a person is claiming they remembered is exactly what they experienced and what happened to them. And unfortunately, at least for right now, there is no technology or legitimate scientific process we can go through that can conclusively validate what a person claims to be remembering is exactly what they experienced.
Okay, so there we go. He has to conclude that there is no objective evidence to support any of these claims. By the way, my phone is back on. I had a couple of callers, one from area code 303, one from 619. I had a 214. If you want to call back, by all means, do so. Phones are open, 505-510-4226. I'll put the number in the chat. So we're listening to an individual, his video is called Clarifying My Call to Brian Stavely About the Mandela Effect. And so for the rest of this call, he makes the point that basically they've crossed the line into intellectual dishonesty and it needs to be, just recognized as such. And what I've done, knowing what this is I've just moved on. And I said, no, we're looking at something that is in the same category as ghost hunting and witchcraft, and really that's about it. It's metaphysical and it's debunkable, so I don't even think it's necessarily evidence of anything other than, yeah, you can be tricked. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how we recall things. And I actually think this is a great opportunity to educate ourselves about how this all works in terms of how you remember. Is your memory actually like a strip of video, or is it something that's constructed on the spot? Can the recent imagery or recent words or any kind of influences in your environment affect how you recall something? Like, so for example, there's a pretty famous study about a car crash where people are looking at the same car crash. And one group is asked, how fast was the car going when it crashed? The other says, how far was it traveling when it impacted? And the ones who were asked about the impact versus the crash reported slower speeds. So it's a matter of suggestion. And then, of course, the interrogator's bias here is that they're framing the question in such a way that it's either this or this. There's no opt-out. And this is what defines a double bind proposition or dilemma, where you don't get an opt-out, and if you're right, you're wrong. If you're wrong, you're right. Because if you're right, and you said jiffy, well, you're wrong according to objective reality. But you're right according to the people who are wrong and think that they're right in being wrong. So they're celebrating their wrongness and they're actually mystifying it. They're mandoozled. And by the way, when we adopted this term mandoozled, shout out to Simi, a thinking heart, I didn't know that the word had previously already been used to describe something else, which has nothing to do with the Mandela effect. Just thought I'd bring that up. So I'm going to open phones. This is Mandoozled. The Mandela effect is in crisis. And what's happening with the Mandela effect is basically it has collapsed, like a couple of universes collapsing into one.
It's the black hole, right?
What's happening with the Mandela effect is basically
It's all just a title. You're never gonna know who the black hole is. You don't understand science. How's that? You don't fucking understand science.
Well, we might be wrong, but at least it led us to God.
Welcome to the reality. This is a topic that,
Okay. Okay, so phones are back open. So again, Tim Truth says, LOL, I just looked up the alternate meaning. The alternate meaning of mandoozled. Yeah, don't look it up if you can avoid it. If you can help it, don't look it up. Because we're going to continue to use this. If you're bamboozled by the Mandela effect, you're still mandoozled. Even if you don't want to admit it, you're just in denial. Like, don't you hate that? When you don't get an opt-out, you either have my beliefs, you share my beliefs, or you suck. That's their stance. Instead of trying to find new Mandela effects or discussing the causes, debating it, in any way engaging in discourse to find out whether this is even real or not, no, they just attack the people who don't believe. So, in other news, I guess this is noteworthy. I was listening to Revolution Radio, and, well, actually I was watching it on Karen B's stream. Patricia Steer is describing how she's coming back to YouTube and why and what her new angle is. And yeah, she's taking a different angle. She's not a flat earth channel anymore. She's going to talk about psychological abuse and her own experiences with it, which will probably help a lot of people. But as I was watching the live stream, I noticed that Stavely was in there. And so the only reason I'm pointing this out is that he makes it a point to shout me out on every one of his live streams, and then he makes these really crude, lewd, disgusting comments that don't hurt my feelings. And I don't think he's really going to beat me up. I mean, he said he will if he sees me, but we all know that if he tried, how many people would jump on him. Like, put a 1 in the chat, just kidding. But listen, Brian Stavely, I guess it was a joke, I don't know. But he was misgendering and Patty Steer and then talking dirty about me. Here's a direct quote from Brian Stavely. Tell him to suck it, Patricia. Look, this is his language, not mine. Just pointing it out, matter of public record. If you're going to publicly publish comments, then you have really no business getting hurt or bothered when people take your comments and comment on your comments, which is what I'm doing. His next one was Good Night Bigfoot. I don't even like repeating some of it. You know, I have a... Let me go ahead and pull this up really quick. I don't have any eyewash handy, but there are some things I just don't want to say because it could be, I don't know, misattributed to me. It's kind of lowbrow, not family friendly, not all that elevated for someone who has seen through the Matrix. You know, you would think that you're part of a spiritual awakening, which is how they phrase it. We're having a spiritual awakening. Okay, well, you know, I understand that, but with your spiritual awakening, you know, aren't you going to somewhat like refine your character in some way? Lilith says, Brian is so gross. X-Pac says, gross and dumb AF. Mo puts a carrot, reiterating, gross and dumb AF. And so, yeah, this, let me just continue. I'm just going to read it, but every time I'm disgusted by what he says, I'm going to put this meme up of Brian washing his mouth out with Dial soap. So his next comment was, Good night, Bigfoot penis. I heard you just left to get more surgery to hide your man jaw. LOLOL. Again, that's Brian's comment. Then Reed Millen says to Brian, hey, I bet this person, Antonio, and IPS are having a threesome right now. Brian says, yeah, he was crying, and I make fun of him. I said I'm going to kick his ass, not kidding. IPS is demonic, and he loves penis, especially blank, blank, blank. I'm not going to name the other people that he's attacking here, but this is just Brian. Again, those aren't my words, those are his. Breakaway Civilization says, what a lowlife. Well, speaking of breakaway civilization, the Mandela affected in a way are something of a breakaway timeline. Like the more the affected gather together, the more they're in their own world. So they're kind of like a breakaway civilization. Only they're not civilized. They're kind of lowbrow, crude, rude, violent if you read their words. I'll cut you, etc. So kind of looks to me like, yeah, it's a breakaway civilization, but not in a good way. What are the ones that go underground in that H.G. Wells, the Morlocks? I think the Mandela affected should go underground. Okay, I'm just kidding. I don't mean that. Maybe a couple of them. Not all of them. I mean, I just think they should do it voluntarily. Like, I'm not about rounding people up or forced relocation. I think that's awful. But I think it would be fine if voluntarily a lot of them just decided, hey, we're kind of a blight on the internet and everything, so we're going to bounce. I bet, cool. Appreciate it. A couple of facts here really quick, and then we'll move on to other topics. And also the phones are now open. Ringer is on. A fact, the Mandela effect affected all of us, even the millennials who don't know who the hell Ed McMahon is. I mean, that's the main thing about it, if you ask me. The main thing that's going to go wrong with it is that it's pretty much only relevant to certain demographics. Marty Moose says he's a homophobe and a disgusting human. I wouldn't say homophobe. I mean, he seems to actually kind of like talking about that. So I'd say homophile. Nothing wrong with that. Tim Truth says, I don't trust this guy's memory at all. Well, that's another thing, too. They have a fundamental misunderstanding of memory itself, which, look, there's no excuse for being ignorant about it. You can look it up. You can look up how memory works unless you're willing to say that that itself is a conspiracy. That memories are, in fact, perfect recollections. Which, no, they're not. Okay, so let's get back on track. I had a few other things I wanted to go over, but you are welcome to call in. I haven't been able to find the supposed beheading of 11 hostages. I found some news articles that hinted at it, referenced it, but no, I haven't been able to find anything. So I'm not convinced at this moment. I'm still not convinced that anybody actually had their heads chopped off on Christmas. But speaking of heads being chopped off, every religious cult or every religion has a way of dealing with the non-believers, burning them at the stake, hanging them, stoning them. Here's something, and this was innovated by Nelson Mandela, so maybe the Mandela affected might want to look into necklacing as a way to deal with their skeptics. And the way it works is you fill up a gas can and then you pour it into the sides of a tire, which then you throw over the Mandela effect denier, and then you light it. And it's like they burn at the stake, only you don't need a stake. You can just do it anywhere. And again, this was innovated by, I don't know if it was innovated by, but it was used by the Mandelas. Just an interesting footnote. And that's not a Mandela effect, like that actually happened. Okay, so we're going to skip over the Urban Dictionary and their definition of the... Okay, so UN backs Russia on Internet Convention. The United Nations on Friday approved a Russian-led bid that aims to create a new convention on cybercrime, alarming rights groups that fear a bid to restrict online freedom. The General Assembly approved the resolution sponsored by Russia and backed by China. This doesn't surprise me because what we're doing, and I'm talking about deconstructing the news, calling out the hoaxes, exposing how the psyops work, basically pulling down the curtain, showing that there is in fact a backstage that integrates the government, the media, the academia, the entertainment world. We're exposing the big hoaxes of our time, including the hoaxery up above. And I don't think that this is going to go well with the other spacefaring nations. Like, I don't think they want to deal with a plague of flat earthers, right or wrong. Maybe they're hiding something. Like, it could very well be, although I doubt it, it could very well be that what they're hiding is that the earth is 3 times bigger than they say, or has twice as much land and they're hiding half of it. So it's all a scam to hide that. I mean, it could be any number of things, I suppose. But my point here is, we're allowed to openly criticize, government scientists, propaganda. We're allowed to mock it, ridicule it, and right now that's what they're attacking. But other places that haven't been so, liberal in that manner, I don't think they could handle the level of just, ridicule and skepticism and really almost just, I guess, rejection. A lot of people are actually walking away from conventional views. They don't trust the news. They don't trust, and this is what I think they're trying to combat. So this is from IdahoStateJournal.com. It's an interesting piece. Welcome to the post-truth world. And what he writes about here is pretty much that he agrees more or less with China and Russia that, yeah, the internet's a bad thing. That all this information, it's not a library. Nope, it's a dumpster. And in this particular article, he brings up a few things, mainly like the effects of Alex Jones and others on political discourse. But he's saying at this point that because disinformation is so destabilizing to society, maybe we need to go ahead and start censoring. But look, he brings up the Soviet Union here. He says, the stakes are high, no doubt about it. Anyway, he's talking about the elections, how they can be affected by this. But anyway, he goes on to say, you don't want to find out what happens if we don't mitigate this now. You have to look no further for examples of the harm that disinformation can do than the former Soviet Union. During my academic career, I worked with a number of very well-educated and successful scientists and engineers from the Soviet bloc. It was common for these folks, despite their success, to be paranoid and distrustful of everything that we in this country take for granted as a pillar of trust. The concept of an unassailable truth to them was kryptonite. So here goes. This is an article about the dangers of misinformation. And what he says here is the real harm is this destruction of trust, or this erosion of trust. I think that's the real harm in the spread of misinformation and gaslighting for gain. After a while, even well-educated people won't know what to believe in, and this can cause long-term psychological damage. So what he's suggesting here is that we're permanently damaging ourselves collectively, psychologically, because we live in a post-truth world where people are allowed to tell untruths or tell things that are contradictory or contradict the mainstream. Of course, the position of this writer is that the mainstream news is the truth, and everything that diverges from it is untrue to the extent that it differs from the mainstream. So this is really a consensus-based view. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, IPS, how's it going? That's a scary article right there.
Oh yeah, and I posted a link, and yeah, this is from the Idaho State Journal, and he's basically advocating for total censorship for our own good.
Yeah, we're seeing just history repeat itself. Punitive psychiatry, where they're going to call us crazy, and for whatever benefit that'll give them, and then the fake news just keeps coming back. I put in the chat there. In the Soviet era, they used to have these fake news laws, and you couldn't criticize the government. And they had one called Dissemination of Fabrications Known to be False, which defamed the Soviet political and social system. And now we're seeing this whole push for fake news. And you brought it up the other day. It seems like it's they're trying to co-opt the term that they can see being used against them.
Yes, absolutely. And this is an alarming development here, because I think they're trying to shift the culture away from free speech like they have away from the Second Amendment. And they're ramping it up right now, and I see these alliances building, and it's probably because it's an election year, and they don't want their, ad money to go onto ads that are, going to be contradicted by people who could just do it for free. Like, they don't want competition.
Yeah, they just twist all these terms, and it bothers me. Election meddling. You had that great quote the other day, that elections are simply an election rigging contest. And it's just really weird to me that, well, it's not weird, but it's frustrating when they pick the exact terms that they're doing and lob it at us. It's like, how do we come back at it? That's why they pick that tactic. So we just look like we're, calling them what they called us, like we lack creativity. But,
yeah, about the meddling thing. They say they don't want deepfakes meddling. They don't want us meddling. But when I look at these elections, which are all just election rigging contests, we already see meddling. Every single psychological operation that bypasses the cognitive process where they can actually think about things, like climate change or moral panics about LG. There's so many different ways that they get people to vote emotionally. And to me, that's election meddling. You just contaminated the voters and their perspectives on the issues.
Oh yeah, it's rampant and coming from every direction. The thing that I noticed a lot is, I'm sure you've noticed that, there's a lot of people who love Trump and there's a ton of people who hate him. Maybe an equal amount on both sides, but it's very divisive. And I think that they're trying to make Trump into a hated figure, so that the liberals will go along and be like, yeah, we do need to censor people. They just have such disdain for him and his followers that they'll agree to something that's going to bite them later. And I don't think he legitimately is like an outsider who came in and won despite all the odds. I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but I think they wanted him all along, or they preferred Hillary a little bit, but both were compromised and would go along with the program. What are your thoughts on the Trump situation and it all being scripted?
It is really interesting that his signature hand gesture, the AOK symbol, went from before Trump, a lot of the church ladies said, oh, that's the 666, so they were scared of it. Then Trump makes it popular because of alt-right figures like Milo Yiannopoulos, and before you know it, it's trendy. So now it's an alt-right thing. But now here we are 3 years later, and now the AOK symbol has been designated by the ADL as a hate symbol, a symbol of hatred of Jews. So I'm like, well, how did they just twist that around? And I think you're right. I think that Trump has been used to push the line. He was the original birther who questioned Obama's birth certificate. He had 9/11 questions, which he never answered any of these things. But yeah, it looks like he's an agitator pushing the line in order to incite censorship. And just like a lot of these other types of agitators, only he's the president. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I've been noticing, have you been watching? It seems like there's been a ton of headlines coming out, which, just seems all well timed to me. That also plays into this free speech and the loss of it. So in New York, they keep saying that, they're having all these attacks on Jewish people. And there was a stabbing today. I think they said some guy at like 9 o'clock, so like 3 or 4 hours ago, ran into like a rabbi's house or something and stabbed 8 people or so. I don't remember the statistics, but it was like after they had done all these preliminary stories in the previous couple days. So it's like it's boiling over, and I think I see a lot of agency behavior, and I think I see, at least in the chat, what I mean, not your chat, but just chats in general, like on YouTube, where you see all these people, saying like blatantly anti-Jewish, hateful things, without like clarifying, that it's not everybody. It's just like, there's like, and then other people just go along with it. And I think YouTube has actually been promoting it and basically letting these channels that espouse this stuff blow up. So it kind of gets the Greta Thunberg effect, where people see somebody get really famous for saying a certain line of thoughts, and then they think that, oh, okay, everyone believes that. That must be the truth. And if I want to be famous, then that's what I should say. But it just seems like it's all coming to a head here.
This is standard operating procedure for the Democrat Party or for the left, and the right does it in their own way. But I think it was David Axelrod who was an advisor or political advisor for the Clintons. But one of the things he would get behind was when there was going to be Republicans in town, you will send in a couple of neo-Nazis or people in Klans outfits for photo ops. And what that does is it enables the people on the other side to later use this to launch their attacks. So they just make it look like, oh, look, they just blend in naturally. So what they do, I think, in the comments is they come in and they say inflammatory things that they know are against the terms of service, just so that channel can be taken down. And I think that it is highly agenty. It could be done by, like, do you remember the record? I think they were calling them that Clinton had this army of trolls that would just go.
David Brock.
Exactly.
David Brock, right? Yeah.
Army of trolls. Like anytime you say anything on any of these platforms against them, they immediately have a troll ready to respond and correct the record. They call them CTR trolls or something.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it also ties into the thing that you taught me about, Office of Strategic Influence, where the army is paying people basically to go on the internet and spread certain talking points. And I truly believe that there's a lot of people out there. Like I see this guy in the chat, and I like his music, but I mean, come on, this Neo Mode Gucci Flip guy asking if I'm Jewish. I mean, does he really think that like all the Jewish people meet up at like the synagogue and decide like how to screw everyone over with banking? I mean, it's ridiculous. But people really start believing it because they see it, and they don't have, I guess they don't have the world experience to understand, that there's a lot of moving parts in a society. And I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's, a Jewish problem, but it just seems ridiculous to me.
Okay, so we have this thing. I was talking about this documentary yesterday called Mirage Men, where in order to maintain control over the worldview of the masses, they will use intelligence services to plant specific conspiracy narratives out there as a way of just guardrailing every issue. And so it seems like many of the whodunits tend to lead nowhere, because the idea of blaming this particular group or that group hasn't really been it's never been like proven. It's like some people spend their whole life chasing the Jesuits, others will spend their life chasing, whatever devil they think it is. But ultimately, I think that there's like a council of, like, there's no way you could pin it on one group. But even if you could, proving it's another thing altogether. So I'm only focused really on what can I prove objectively.
Right, but these people that say, like, Jews run Hollywood, like this guy's saying in the chat, well, I mean, I guess there's a lot of Jewish people, but you could also say, like, whites run the United States. And it's like, yeah, I guess the people that are the puppets and the people maybe behind, puppeteering are white, but that doesn't mean that every white person is involved in a conspiracy and, should be imprisoned. It's just so imprecise that it bothers me from a strictly logical perspective. But
well, another thing too is, as I look at this thing with the world stage in mind, much of what we're presented, including the alternative, is pretty much going to be the story that we're sold. And so if you were in control of the world and you wanted to remain in the shadows, wouldn't you have a proxy that does your dirty work? I mean, how would you?
Yeah, what I'm worried about here is that there's a lot of people who are on looking and seeing this, what appears to them. I mean, I would agree with them. It doesn't really bother me. I think people should be able to say what they want to say, but I think this is going to be used against people who want to speak freely on the internet, because they're going to say, well, look at all these people who are just attacking Jewish people for no reason. And it's just like they're setting themselves up for using this as their hand here to all these converging points where they can deprive us of our speech. So I just don't know how much it's worth it. I mean, I guess people just want to hate Jews for some reason.
Well,
and I guess there's some scary videos on the internet or something that scared them. But I mean, what about their religion is really terrifying to them? I mean, isn't that what? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, to be honest.
Well, it's this agent provocateur thing where I do think there are plenty of agent provocateurs, and I think they get people in the mindset that there's a big conspiracy going on, and if we can just find out who done it, we can stop it. But I don't think it's a whodunit. None of these events are. I think we first need to understand what is it, what's real, what isn't. Because if they can get people to accept a scapegoat and then go to war based on that, well, then you have an army of extremists who will just basically, kill on command without thinking. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, leaping to conclusions. And I think that the specific red herrings are probably being used because, this is part of an overall strategy. I find it interesting that yet Borat coming out, getting an award from the ADL, telling us what is and what isn't hateful. And honestly, I feel like the ADL is a bunch of bullies and a bunch of hateful agitators, and what they're doing isn't the solution to this so-called hate, which I think they pretty much make up. I mean, most hate crimes are faked, but I think that they're ramping this up to get the public's agreement that, hey, look, we're going to have to do something about free speech so we don't have another Holocaust, just like we had to have the Patriot Act so we don't have another 9/11.
Oh, I'm with you 100% on that. I just I can't get with these people. They just don't seem intelligent to me. If they're just going to blame a religion for all their problems, I mean, it's just,
what's funny?
I'm not on their side.
I used to listen to a couple of far-right radio hosts. One of them was Michael Savage, and I listened to him for about 6 months or more. I read all his books. I was doing research on everybody in the media. At one point, I decided just to kind of figure out who was who. And Michael Savage's whole worldview, because he's very pro-Israel, is that the main enemy of the world is secretly the Muslims, and he'll push this idea that the media is actually owned by Saudi princes, that Fox is owned by Saudi Arabia. So you have any group can almost pin everything on somebody else. So, the other guys own everything. The other guys control the media, and they're the ultimate bad guy. And then you have others who say, no, the Jesuits control the media, the Jesuits control everything. And then, like you said, it's very interchangeable. So I don't really...
No one knows, and it's too simple. I mean, you can't simplify it down to a single word and a single group because there's multiple groups. I mean, it's kind of idiotic to do that.
Well, look, if we're going to blame anything on a group or point a finger at a group that is probably the one that's going to represent the greatest threat to humanity, it would actually have to be the environmentalists far more than the Jews. I mean,
Yeah, I would agree, but not all environmental. I mean, in every group, there's like the people actively trying to do something evil, and then the people that get tricked along. Even in the people in the group of people who are thinking that Jews are the problem, I'm sure a lot of them just came to that conclusion from their research. But I really do think something weird's going on here in terms of them stoking this in the people. Like I really do. It's just like the amount of people that come to that conclusion. It makes me think that I don't know. It makes me think it's algorithmic. Like the YouTube algorithm is promoting it. But
no, this is an interesting point. So like when I said a minute ago, we're just like we're looking at this use of heated rhetoric and then this use of this term hate as an excuse to censor us. And yeah, I do think that we're being baited more or less. And I think there may be agitators. I think many of these attacks in New York or wherever right now are pretty much fake. But to me, it's a no-go, non-winning issue, and no one's proved anything with it. And what I find too is that the people who have these criticisms in the chats rarely call. But
yeah, one of them, I hope they'll call in. I'll get out of the way. But it's just something I saw, especially with the stabbing today. Like, I don't know if it's real. I mean, I've got to, until I see proof, I'm going to assume it's not real. But it just seems like there's something going on. And it seems like there's, it's just a lot of things coinciding. I always keep an eye on the chats. And I just, I never quite got that thread. But hey, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, we're looking at this Metascript thing. And so there has been this buildup of headlines talking about hate. And since the ADL, and this stuff doesn't happen without being planned in advance. Like, so for example, right before the mentally ill people started shooting people this summer, it was revealed that the FBI had it wasn't released to the public, but it was an internal bulletin where they started to say that conspiracy theorists were domestic terrorists and that conspiracy theorists were often mentally ill. So I'm like, wait, that came out right before these shootings. So if we have like Borat getting this award, and then the ADL comes out and says, here's a bunch of things that are now hate symbols, including bowl cuts and AOK symbols, that's all come out. NPR just did a story saying, hey, look, the AOK symbol, that means hatred of Jews. So yeah, it looks like they may be building into something. We've had a few mosque shootings. We've had a couple of synagogue shootings. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And also, we're in an election year, so you can expect another event on the scale of some of what we saw leading up to Trump's election. We had trucks running over people. We had the gay disco shooting. We had the terrorist shooting in San Bernardino. So yeah, I would expect there to be some type of white power neo-Nazi Timothy McVeigh type with high casualties. It wouldn't surprise me. Fake, of course.
Yeah, and last thing, I have a feeling that they're building this animosity on purpose. Like you mentioned the Barbra Streisand effect the other day, and I really think they understand that if they pass anti-Semitism laws, and if Borat comes out in front of us and gives the speech he gives, that they're going to stoke the flames inside of people. And people in the chat are saying, "Oh, well, look at who you can't criticize, and that's who's to blame," but not necessarily. If everyone's just going by that, by that way to decide. I mean, it seems like if that's the way you have to come to the conclusion of who to blame, then you have no idea. Like, you have no idea what the problem is, or else you'd be able to come up with better evidence than just that you can't criticize them.
No, it's kind of like the Mandela effect. It's one of these things where people get emotionally attached to an answer that makes sense, and if you notice, that's how most cults work. And it's an enclosed view that has this zero-sum game, and it's either or. The body of Christ has to fight the synagogue of Satan. Just a story. But yeah, I think it's very, I think we're past that. I think it needs to be auto-hoaxed and deconstructed, because what if history as we know it is fallacious? What if the Jews really weren't kicked out of 110 countries? What if, there's a number of things that may not be valid today, considering how fake things in the past were.
Right, and let me just caveat by just saying, I'm sure and I know there's a ton of evil Jewish people, but they're not. I mean, it's like just like any group, you're going to have evil people. So if we overlook the Jesuits, if we overlook the Christians, if we overlook atheists, the scientists, the academics, the politicians, then we're not really trying to solve the problem. You're just hating Jews at that point. But IPS, thanks for taking my call, and I hope one of them will call in and set me straight.
Yeah, definitely. I have my phone open. Thanks for calling, Tim. That's Tim Truth, and if you want to drop a link to your channel or your float. By the way, here's another reason to get on Float if you haven't already. If you look at my Float account here, Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Hello?
Yes.
Hey, what's up, caller? So tonight we've been talking about the Mandela effect. We've been talking about the use of, I guess, hate crime laws to censor free speech. And then I found some journalists who's totally in favor of censorship. What do you think?
I mean, I was listening to the dude before, and like, I mean, I think but he never answered like some of the questions. I mean, I heard some people saying some stuff in chat, but you know, I came into the conversation when you were speaking about, you know, Jewish topics, and so I mean, the caller, I agreed with some points, you know, and definitely it's kind of a constructed narrative, you know, that definitely there is this, you know, stereotype of the Jews controlling everything, and you know, et cetera, kind of just dismissing, you know, any other element. But you know, I just wanted to know, what is a goyim? Because it sounded, I mean, it sounded like he, you know, was Jewish, you know, just defending this. He sounded very defensive. So, you know, I have no problem with Jewish people.
I don't look, man. Let me just look, man. I don't think he was defending Jews. Like personally, I don't know any, so I can't speak. Like I really don't. I don't have a lot of.
I don't either.
Okay, so but look, he was only making the point that they have been systematically destroying our free speech by attacking the free flow of information on the internet under the pretense that there's no, but they've been doing it to save us from hate speech, which is fake. So this guy's saying, why are we basically repeating the lines that they give us to repeat so they can censor us?
No, true. I mean, it's baiting. We're being baited, obviously.
And he's not taking the bait. And I kind of
why do you think they're telling us that, you know, we need to get rid of guns and all these mass shootings are happening? Well, it's because they want to get rid of guns so that you can't defend yourself. But they can't tell you that, so they have to pull all these tricks to get you to the same end. It's baiting. There's a term for it, but it's sleight of hand, basically. You know, these people are just leading us one direction, getting us into, you know, they're totally leading us astray, but it's going to their end. You know, they know the end plan. So I don't know. And as far as like the Jew thing, I mean, you can't deny though that it's a fact. Like that's what I was saying about this caller. Like, you know, he's speaking like everyone wants to hate the Jews and stuff. No one wants to hate the Jews, dude. But you can't deny facts in history. Jews created Hollywood. Jews created the music industry. Jews created the entertainment industry completely. It's all facts. They're the ones who put the money into it. They're the first people to profit from it before any of the artists. So you can't deny that. They own all communications in the United States. Israel directly has the largest telecommunications. Every transmission that goes on telephones in the United States goes back to a database in Israel. It's proven fact. You can look it up right now.
I got a question. Now, if they control it, how did we go from a very centralized media?
They do more than control.
No, wait.
They can tap anyone's phone at any moment.
Wait, how did they go?
Since it was created, like.
When you say they, but first of all, I'm saying this though, they had it tightly.
Israel specifically.
Let me finish my sentence. Okay, they had it tightly under control, and then we had the internet happen, and now it became decentralized. Why, if they're so bad and evil and powerful, did they allow it to become decentralized? Why did they allow the internet?
They didn't allow it to become decentralized. One man made the internet.
Al Gore?
There's one. No, not Al Gore. There's one person who made the internet, and he gave the source code up, and now that's why we have the internet. If he didn't create the internet the way it is, no one would have created the internet. He's the founder of the internet. There's one person. It's not Bill Gates. It's not anyone to do with computers. It's that guy that you don't know about. He's not rich. He didn't make any money off of it. He gave it up to the people. It's fact, proven. So
Okay, are you
that's from the people.
Okay, now
That's
another
from
question.
the people. That's that. You know, the establishment has to adapt to what we do. So not everything is run by the establishment. So the
Okay, second
establishment
question.
may put the drugs into the
Second-
community, but they don't control how it gets to certain people. That's up to the people.
Second
you know?
question for you. So let's say you're right. Okay, so the Israel controls American media. Do they control the media in China, Saudi Arabia, Africa, and Australia, or is it just America?
No, I mean, I'm sure. Well, why do you think we have such an alliance in America with Israel?
No,
Because we created Israel.
But what I'm asking
America
you-
created Israel in 1940s.
What I'm asking
So
you.
that's why.
What I'm
So
asking
I'm
you.
sure they don't have.
Do they control
No,
the
no,
media in China?
I'm answering your question. I mean, that's what I'm getting at. No, they don't, because they have an alliance with the Americans. They don't have an alliance with China. They don't have an alliance with all these other countries. America created Israel. America is the reason why Israel exists. So, as a state, no one recognized Israel. It's called Syria, or not Syria, but it was a different place. It's not that. Like, America created Israel, so therefore, yes, they control. They're the money. They have the. You got to understand, it goes way, way back. It goes way back to when. Okay, basically, it goes biblically. So if you want to speak about the Bible, which some people agree with, some people don't agree with, but the Bible and the Torah were interpreted that differently. So Jews interpreted the moneylenders. That's why they're called the moneylenders. That's why people hate them, allegedly and culturally through society. They're the first to lend money and charge interest, hence the banks. Okay, so they're the first people to start the banks, and that was sin back then. So that's why they kept getting thrown around.
Hey, wait, check
They're
this out.
people.
A commenter, short
That's
face.
historical fact.
Short
That's
face.
historical fact. Medici.
Short face bear
Way
says.
before the Medici.
Commenter says China is communist. Communist was started by Karl Marx, a Jew. Do you agree with that statement?
I mean, I have to research that, but that has nothing to do with anything because it's all. You gotta understand, the Jewish people are about Jewish people. Like that's what people don't forget. Jewish people don't shake your hand. There's certain, Jewish people
Okay,
do things a
let's
very
move on.
specific
Look,
way.
let's move on
you know?
because honestly, I find this topic to be not relevant to my interests. And it's not that I'm trying to cover
Sure.
for it. I don't have any
No,
affiliation.
absolutely. We can definitely. I just wanted to respond to kind of what the first caller said, but we
Okay,
can move on for sure.
Because in my own personal assessment of this thing, I tend to look at it as an entrenched elite oligarchy and a power structure. And
absolutely.
and I think that structure could work if you had Samoans in charge, or if you had, any group in charge. It could be multicultural.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. So that's why I just don't think it really makes sense to blame
No.
or hyper focus on one particular.
But I'm
narrative.
just saying you cannot deny the influence is what I'm saying. So you can't just say, because the Jews own the whole media, basically,
I can
that
deny
doesn't mean they have any influence.
I can deny.
You know what I mean? You can't deny the influence of that. You don't have ghetto poor black people owning the record labels. It's the Jewish people who own the record labels. Proven point, case in fact. So we can move on for sure, but whatever that dude was saying is not correct.
So are you saying that gangster rap is all secretly bankster rap?
100%. Well, who do you think was the first person to step in to NWA? A Jew, a Jewish person looking to make a profit. They pull a profit. They could do other things to other cultures. That's what I'm saying. I asked Goyim. Goyim is the term for everyone who's a non-Jew. Everyone who's a non-Jew is a Gentile. They're not Jewish. Okay, so if you're not Jewish, they don't look at you the same way. They don't treat you the same way.
One more thing.
in their religion. So
you
they
might
can
be
profit off your culture and
you might be a
not
Goyim.
look at it wrong.
You're a Goyim, you're an infidel,
So, and-
you're also a climate change denier, and you're a Mandela effect denier. Every group has a way of branding the outsiders. So it's Jews aren't the only they're not the only ones that
you
have
can't relate Jews to climate change. That's science. That goes into weird. That's science and all that stuff. This is sociological, society, cultural.
Yep,
we're talking about cultures and society, ideology, not the weather.
Exactly. No. Climate change is an ideology. It's a religion. It's an eschatology.
No, absolutely. I don't believe in climate change. I'm just saying that.
It is analogous.
I'm just saying these people that say Jews are 3% of the world population. So how do you you gotta have something wrong going on when you just start getting hated on,
No, check this
maybe
out.
no one understands you.
No,
but
check this out. I was making the point earlier that
You're getting hated on for some reason. You know what I mean? Like,
I was making the point earlier that the radical environmentalism is a greater threat to mankind than Israel.
no, absolutely, because environmentalism is human hatred. And
So why though?
you know, Agenda 2030,
look,
the second pack.
So what
you know,
hey, look,
framework,
what
all that.
what offends you more, being called a goyim or a polluter?
And none of them really offend me because I don't care. I don't care if I'm not a Jew. I don't care. And I don't care if someone calls me a polluter because I'm not a polluter. But I am a polluter because we all pollute. Because even if we throw things in the trash can, we're still polluting because we're just displacing the pollution because we give it to a company and then throws it into a landfill that doesn't do shit with it.
Hey, really quick here. Phones are open, everyone. 505-510-4226. Yeah, what I'm just talking about here, though, are these labels that I don't really identify with and I don't accept. And I see this use of labeling as actually very demeaning to everybody. And I don't participate. I'm a conscientious objector. I don't vote. I don't believe in this voting system. And so I don't accept those labels. So you can't call me a goyim or an infidel. That doesn't apply to me. And so when you...
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just telling you how they think. They don't care about... I'm not even saying Jews now. I'm just saying people.
Yeah.
They don't care what you think, though, dude. Like, that's what I'm getting at. These people, they'll laugh at you. Okay, cool. That doesn't stop them from putting a bullet in your head and stopping what you're about to do just because you don't care what they think about you. You know what I mean? You got to play the cards. Like, these people are playing cards, dude.
Who?
This whole thing, whatever the power structure is, dude, there's an elite power structure. The Jews are just one cog of it.
Right. That's
you know
that's the only valid point you could possibly make. That if anything, there's
it's one of the many valid points that I've made.
Yeah, but to emphasize it above all the others is just redundant, ridiculous, and it's very much like an agitation.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. But there's credence to it, you know?
I don't know that. No, I don't know. Like you say, it's like blood libel.
Yeah,
I don't know.
demonstrated it.
Like, do I know? Okay, well, you're going to say demonstrated. Okay, well, is there a correlation between angry white kids with bowl cuts and school shootings? Like, has that been demonstrated?
No, that's just a coincidence.
No, it's fake news. It's an intentionally created...
It's a construct. Obviously, it's a narrative to push.
Exactly.
It's a character created.
Exactly, and I'm
it's
saying
a narrative being run. You know,
exactly.
I get it.
And this idea of these Jewish supremacists versus the goyim is another narrative, and I don't think it's all that valid. I think it's mostly...
I mean, if you read the Torah, then you would think it's valid because that's how they think.
Well, if you read the Quran, then that's how Muslims think. And if you're basically...
No, it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. What are you talking about, man? Yeah, it is. I'm Muslim. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Yeah, of course.
My
family's Muslim. I'm not Muslim, but my family, half of them Muslim, so I know the faith.
Okay, so then when
they think a certain way,
listen to me. Listen,
bro.
So when somebody says,
go to Saudi Arabia and see what happens if you try to walk around as a woman alone. You're gonna get questioned. You're gonna get maybe arrested.
Maybe arrested, and then what?
2019. Depends who your family is. If your dad allowed you to go out, then he might get arrested too.
So let me go. I understand that.
What you believe.
But what I'm saying is, I
wouldn't. You could be non-religious, and it don't matter.
Okay, but I wouldn't say that you endorse that because you're a Muslim. Do you endorse that?
No, absolutely not. But I'm just telling you.
Would you? Okay, wait, stop though. Stop. Would you be offended if I said that because you believe in the Quran, you think that women who don't cover their hair should be arrested and possibly raped?
No, if that's what the Quran says, that's what it says.
Anyway, phones are open, 505-510-4226. Nothing personal, man, but you're talking over me, and we have a couple of other callers who are trying to get through. Infinite Plane Radio.
Yes, hello?
Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, that guy was crazy.
Well, let's talk about what he was saying. Okay, so I don't think he was crazy. He was making some points, but we disagreed on a few things, I think. But where did you go? What did you hear that you think was crazy? And we'll go on that.
I mean, like, I don't know. He's just really, I don't know. Talk about Jews and stuff. I don't believe it. I think it's just fake. Like.
Yeah, I didn't get anything out of it. I was trying to figure it out. But my point I was trying to make at the end.
I didn't really hear anything. I thought it was just kind of like nonsense.
I was trying to get some type of point out of him, or some concession that I had a point, because, for one thing, I think that there's this double standard where somebody can say, yeah, every race is bad at the top and they're all doing bad things, but the Jews are the baddest of the bad. And I think if you're really being completely honest, you would have to say that the radical environmentalist agenda has far more hideous implications for mankind than 3% of the population.
Why though?
Well, because it's statist, growth of government at the expense of freedom. I mean, that's what radical environmentalism leads to. Total statism, this green world order, communist state thing. I think that's far worse than what, I don't know, Jewish control of the media is going to do. What do you think?
I mean, I don't really believe the Jews control the media. Do you?
No, I think it's a stupid proposition.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've done a lot of research about it. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know, clearly. You know, my family is Jewish. So, I'm on my dad's side.
Well,
so,
then, wait. Do you get a cut? Do you get a royalty check from CNN and Fox and BBC and New York Times every month? Don't you own don't you own the media?
My dad, you know, I come from, you know, my family works hard, you know, very hard. I come from a family, you know, immigrated from Israel. So.
But do you get a cut of like do any of these rappers have to pay you a cut whenever they sell records?
No. No. How crazy is that?
Well, I mean, I thought you controlled the media and you controlled the rap labels, and all the gangster rappers got to pay you a little bit of a toll every month or a royalty. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they pay the tithe, you know.
It's like
they pay it.
I see the same thing. Look, I see the same thing.
About it?
I see the same thing with people who are like, well, show me my white privilege. Like they say you have white privilege, but then, you know, where is it? It's all just a matter of someone else.
I mean, what privilege is being white?
I'm just saying that this is all, to me, it's just ridiculous political identity group posturing, and I really don't go there. And so when I see people who want to call in and talk about it, I'm fine with it, but I'm like, you know.
I mean, they're controlled ops, obviously.
You think so? You think these are all provocateurs on script?
I mean, clearly, I mean, don't you? I mean, that's what you talk about. I watch your show, you know, so I know what you guys speak about. And that, you know, clearly you guys believe how I believe.
I don't know. I mean, I guess some people could be, but I think more than likely they're influenced by guardrail narratives that anybody can share. It's not like you need specifically to be an agent to be pushing agent lines. Like there's this documentary I was just talking about called Mirage Men that proves that all of these popular UFO stories, UFO abductions, etc., were actually authored and promulgated by the Air Force itself. So I look at all these conspiracy theories as highly suspect.
I mean, totally, absolutely. You know, it's all logic. It's all a part of the plan. I mean, the aviation goes. It's clear.
What's clear? Well, the call wasn't. 505-510-4226. You know, was that I think that was the same caller calling with a disguised voice. Did anybody else get that impression? Infinite Plane Radio, let's talk about something other than Israel, please.
Yeah, oh my God. Man, this is getting crazy. Who are these people?
You tell me. I mean, I think that these are just people who are being spoon-fed a steady diet of it was the Jews, and they don't really have anything else.
9/11 was an inside job, kind of, you know, Alex Jones, maybe.
Mantras. It's just mantras, and I'm not really buying it.
Yeah. But anyway, so,
and look,
you
really
think...
really quick here, I hate the fuck out of the ADL, okay? I hate Borat.
The Anti-Defamation League, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm just comfortable saying that I hate these institutions. I hate what they promulgate, which is bigotry, but... that's as far as I go, you know.
We ain't got no time for bigotry in 2020, man. It's straight cracking. Like anyone who's talking about hatred or like that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I called in here. All these people just keep calling
Like the first guy was cool though.
Yeah, the first
Like,
guy was cool.
He was cool, but that it's just like the Jews, bro. It's like get over it, bro. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, but 2020 is cracking for like hatred. Like it's all positivity, all the way. Like that's it. That's the only thing that we can do, you know, because it's all about dividing. It seems like everyone's like dividing, you know, like horribly. And so what happened with Trump getting impeached? Nothing happened, right?
No, it's just a big.
No?
I actually think that Trump wanted it to happen so people would start paying attention again.
Yeah.
Because literally nothing happens and nothing will
Yeah.
happen. Just more people will vote.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. I was like, damn, like my homies and shit, they were like, man, like Trump, like, I don't know. I thought it was like a scam because like now all the white people and shit, they're going to be like, yo, like we got to do that, man. We got to get him back. Like they're going to double down on Trump, you know?
They probably will because they're constantly scared by the news media that tells them we got to build a wall.
Wait, have you ever seen Jeranism?
Yeah, I used to listen to Jeranism.
You fuck with Jeranism?
What
do you think about? You think he's like a what's that shit, bro?
A show?
I forget what it's called. Yeah. Asian or something shit.
I'll be quite honest with you. It is my honest opinion that Jeranism and Bob from Glowbusters and everybody associated with them are working for NASA as controlled opposition agents. That's just my belief, and I have a lot of reasons to believe it. I think that they get checks from NASA, and they fake like they're always begging for money, like they're always e-begging. Well, they don't need that. They're getting paid on the down low from NASA, I believe, because they...
Bro, I think the truth seekers and shit, like, they need to do shit for free, man. I think any government official should be free, bro. They should not get paid for anything. If you want to serve, you got to serve. That's it. Like, or like a minimum, like you got a place to stay and food. You know what I'm saying? For your family or something like that's it. Just enough to get,
Yeah, because you're
politician.
Right. Yeah, because
and then they get the fuck out.
Yeah, because they get invested in their power and then they seek to secure it. You're right about that.
That's what I'm saying, man. Fuck all this shit, bro. It's crazy, bro. This like simple, but we got people who's like they just want to live in the Matrix, dude. Like that movie was real, bro. Like I swear to God, like it's some like Kubrick shit. Like what other movie has that dude made? Any other movies?
Well, let's see. The Matrix. I don't know.
I'm curious. Has that dude made any or was that it? He made the Matrix and that's just fuck. He's like, all right, bro, I'm out. Like, well, that movie probably made so much money.
The guy behind the movie, the guy who wrote the books that the movie's based on, William Gibson.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
A lot of his works became other movies similar. Like man, there's a few other movies I think that are probably even better, but The Matrix in particular is definitely based on allegory of the cave, and I think it's pretty much valid as far as like how the world actually works. It's believers enslaved by the oligarchs, and then the perceivers become rebels because they go against what the believers are told to believe.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, bro, but I just want to call in like real quick and shit, but yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate your comments. Thanks for calling. All right, phones are open, 505-510-4226. We're talking about a number of things today. Crystal Lion says, no term limits, just no consecutive terms. Yeah, that's not bad. I think he's right, though, if you take the money out of it. I haven't heard that in a while. But that's actually cutting edge right there. You take the financial incentive out of it, why would you want to run? Like, what if Trump had to live in a single bedroom apartment or a fucking basement? Put that guy in a basement. Infinite Plane Radio. What's up, caller? Hey, do you think that Donald Trump should have to live in a basement and not get paid for the job just so he does it out of love for the country and patriotism?
Are you saying just Donald Trump or like for every president ever?
Every president, every politician. I think put them all in basements, put them all on minimum wage.
I agree with I think the other caller said that before. Like, you don't really get paid anything. You just live in a basement and you have your fundamental, water, fucking food, if you have a family or whatever, stuff to not make them die, I guess. But yeah, other than that, yeah, you don't need any paycheck or anything. I think being any contributor or any cog to a bigger government such as, what we're under, I think fuck all that, bro. If you're gonna just do that, you don't need any money with that, bro. You're doing some bigger picture type situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm with that. I'm not. Are you planning on voting for anybody in 2020?
Yeah, actually, that's crazy. I actually just registered to vote this like past year. I've kind of like just started really turning my eye onto our politics, our local politics in the United States, which is obviously it's almost like just kind of like big Dungeon and Dragons type, like I don't know, like bullshit. But I will be voting. Yeah, I'll probably be voting for Donald Trump. I didn't vote last year, but I think I'll vote for him again just because of his. I don't know. I think he's like we're gonna look back and he's gonna just be like, holy shit, like he was just this massive like change in America. So yeah, I'll probably vote for him. Are you gonna vote? Do you think?
I voted for him last time. This time, I'm actually planning on not voting as an act of conscientious objection, and the reason why is I think that the voters have been contaminated as rational thinkers by so many psychological operations. So I'm going to take a stance against voting this year. But I mean that's I'm not actually telling anybody else what not to do, but we'll see.
Yeah. Do you think it even matters, like voting?
Good question.
As citizens,
I used to say that yes, even if you lose, just getting engaged in the political process. Because I remember when I turned Democrat family members for decades, Democrats, I turned them into Trump voters. I was kind of more or less kind of getting involved in a little bit of grassroots activism. I kind of believed in the whole political process, but now I think if you get involved, you're engaging in political warfare. And once you're in there, you're in a group of people who are going to automatically believe all of the psychological operations, including fake terror attacks, fake shootings, and fake climate change. So I just want to be around rational thinkers, and there's no rationality in the voting public.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Especially with like federal stuff, like federal government, like the bigger branches and stuff. That's totally all evil. But I will say this: I do think like when you get down to like more like state governments, like how it's like almost like a smaller population, your own county or stuff like that. Like voting for like sheriffs and like voting for like school boards and stuff like that. I think that's like the most pure, quote unquote, I guess, politics and like. Being able to, as citizens, vote for something that can have an impact on a community, maybe not the grander national scale, but maybe as a state scale or a county scale. I think that's cool. Like, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I totally agree with what you just said, dude. Like, being any a part of like, that other like hierarchy of like, it's weird. It's weird to vote for someone in office who can bomb a country that I've never heard of. Thousands of miles away without really me having any say in it besides just putting him in office.
Well, I don't believe in the lesser of two evils argument, which I often hear. They say, well, Clinton drinks baby's blood and traffics in human beings, and Trump is just an old whoremonger. How can you really, go against him if those are your only options? And I'm saying, no, I'm not going to participate at all because Trump, to me, is a crisis actor.
Yeah. No, he's yes. I think the call before this or whatever, like, or you may have said, it's like made up. It's like a character that they kind of present to the public that just came out of nowhere, I guess. To persuade. You think it's to like just put everyone under control?
Well, I don't know where things went wrong, but it just seems to me that I can't participate in an election where everyone is so misinformed, and I can prove they're misinformed because they're voting on issues based on misinformation. And so if half the country is voting against the right because they fear guns, because what they saw in the news, which covered things that were supposedly real but aren't real, well, then I'm voting I'm voting against brainwashed people or people who have been misinformed, like I said. And I think it's a lose-lose situation because the political left is fascist and statist, and the political right has now gone fascist. So there's nowhere to go. The only where to go is post-government, anti-state. That's pretty much where I'm going, and so I'm just going to more or less spend my time and energy around people who aren't, participating in this thing, and just criticizing it from the outside.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think so? Do you think this is has been happening since like forever in the politics things, or do you think there has ever been like a really like I guess genuine wanting to for the government to be they want the best for their citizens, or
That's
do
a
you
good
think it's always
question.
been like
Okay, that's a good
some
question.
manipulation shit?
Yeah, leading up
Yeah.
to Trump, like, I was a believer in the founding fathers and in their
Yeah, yeah,
intentions and
totally.
integrity. I bought into all of this patriot mythology, I guess, where I thought, we had a perfect system, and then the Democrats had to ruin it. And we could have a perfect system and we could make America great again, but the Democrats want to ruin it. So I fell into that trap for a while, thinking that we once had a perfect system and it's been compromised. Once the news was good, and now it's been taken over by liberals. Like Trump would always, I mean, not Trump, like Rush Limbaugh would always drum this line that liberal media bias has screwed it up. Now I realize, no, it's been screwed from day one. It was never fixed.
Mm. Yeah, that's really depressing, man. That's probably correct, and that makes me very sad. But I also kind of did, I guess, like you said, I guess bought into the mythology of like this perfect system that we had. But maybe it was just set up to fail to begin with.
Well, mythology is a lot of what we get is mythology. How they control us is mythology. In fact, this documentary I just watched called Miragemen said specifically that the Air Force was using mythology to hide state secrets, meaning they created UFO myths and stories. And so,
Of course.
I think that these storylines each paint the respective parties in the best light. So if you go by the official stories, the Republicans are like, no, we freed the slaves. The Democrats are the slave owners. And they get you to play into this dialectic, and every side accuses the other side of faking their own histories. It's just so convoluted. So I understand if you want to, check out the system and possibly vote or whatever, see it from the inside. Personally, though, like this year, I'm taking a stance against it. Although I thought I might vote for Hillary Clinton just to piss off the QAnon people.
Yeah, dude, that'd be pretty funny. That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking the time, bro. I gotta get out of here. I just
Cool.
actually was looking on YouTube and I found you, so this is actually really cool. So you got a sub, bro. You got a fan of me.
Very cool.
Catch you later.
All right, thanks again. Appreciate it. And yeah, anytime I'm live, just call in 505-510-4226. Pretty much open topics. So that's someone who's just registered to vote. Look, I'm not going to tell people not to vote. Figure out for yourself. I went to Trump rallies to see for myself. I heard he was the devil. I wanted to go see the devil. And what I saw was basically the World Wrestling Entertainment equivalent of a political rally. There were fights, there were protesters against Trump who were bussed in, and we had this thing called the Walk of Shame, where there was a sidewalk that led into the convention center, and on each side of the sidewalk you had angry Democrats who were yelling shame, shame, shame as we walked in to the convention center. And later I found out that the protesters, the ones who burned the t-shirt stand and broke the window and spooked the police horses with fireworks, those guys who rioted, who were tear gassed, and it was a mess. In fact, I could show you the mess here. We'll go Trump rally Albuquerque riot. So the rioters were wearing 2016 Albuquerque riot. It has its own wiki page. So it says here, Donald Trump had a rally that attracted 7,000 supporters in Albuquerque on May 24th. Counter-protests occurred the same day. It began peacefully but descended into violence that night. The remaining protesters gathered at the convention center. Demonstrators burned signs, they burned Trump t-shirts, they threw rocks and bottles at the police. It was characterized as a riot. The clash with police continued until 11 p.m. 3 rioters were arrested in the chaos, and police officers were injured from thrown rocks. Anyway, this was caused by people who weren't even from Albuquerque. The actual rioters were bussed in from California, and they were wearing Bernie Sanders shirts, but they were employed by Clinton. So, it's all theater, and this is just a stage. So it's like, you want to go get on the stage and look around, go for it. But you have the Proud Boys and Antifa fighting, and it's like, look, fascists fighting fascists. I'm going to go ahead and opt out. Crazy Wooden Door says, let me get this right. Voting is useless, and not voting is what then? Not voting is a principled objection to the Psywar. You're basically not consenting. You don't need anything that they're voting for. Do you need the politicians to solve climate change? No. Do you need the politicians to grab your guns? No. What do you need them for? What do you need their policy platforms for? The policy platforms on the left and the right and the middle are a bunch of crap that panders to political identity groups. It's worthless. We don't need any of it. You don't. Just ignore it. Ignore the election. You'll keep your friends. You're not going to polarize your family. Ignore the election and just spend more time, I don't know, researching things. Whatever you do, entertaining yourself, really, just enjoying your life. Why get sucked into it? It's a mind war. Why take a side? Trump is not on the side of freedom or capitalism or free speech. Trump is on the side of Borat. He's like, we got to go ahead and stop the hate. He falls for all that stuff. So, nope. I'm going to be watching the election day by day. I'm going to be criticizing it from our perspective, off the world stage, looking in. Cozy Wooden Horse says, I need them so others don't make me eat bugs. And the government's not doing anything other than getting in the way. See, they want to fight over the money. Look, we need to spend the money. No, we need to spend the money. It's like, what do you mean? You guys just robbed hundreds of millions of people, and now you're going to fight over who gets to spend the loot? How about you stop taking it? People will say, why do we allow NASA to collect $52 million a day? That money could be feeding the homeless or whatever. It's like, no, that money was stolen property. We don't get to say, stop this particular institution or agency from getting this money and give it over here. No, it's like, stop stealing in the first place. But that's a huge cultural shift. People need to break away from this dependency on Big Brother. Crystal Lion says less than 50% participation makes the election invalid. Well, you won't get that. One of the ways they're going to ramp up participation is psychological operations, fake shootings, and drama. What do you think this bogus impeachment was? This is just like rock the vote. We got to get people to vote, so let's do this. Let's make it look like Trump's an underdog again. Because remember, he was an underdog in 2016, and that's why he won. He's not an underdog anymore. Now he's the big bully in office who tweets, makes mean tweets against Greta. He's a big schoolyard bully, right? No longer an underdog. No one's going to vote for that. So now he's a victim of corrupt, egotistical politicians on the other side. And so he, again, it's all about positioning. Look, it's a clown show, and if you find it entertaining, that's what I'm doing. Keeping Up with the Crisis Actors. If you haven't seen it, it's this coverage we do of the crisis actors that we've been following over the years. So, for example, here's one you all know. Gene Rosen. Gene Rosen from Sandy Hook has resurfaced as Jerry Myers at a Pittsburgh synagogue as a rabbi. So we're keeping up with all these various crisis actors as a form of entertainment. We don't actually believe this stuff's true. We're deconstructing it, but we're, following all the acts and all the different characters and their roles in this thing. And so we're going to continue to follow this political process, this election as it unfolds. But no, I'm not going to treat it like it's real or authentic or useful. Okay, so recovering from the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in history, a gunman kills 11 people at the Tree of Life. Well, the rabbi at the Tree of Life happens to be a Sandy Hook person. So, Rabbi Jeffrey Myers. Here we go. Yep, that's Gene Rosen. One of the worst actors ever. I mean, the Government Actors Guild. It's not Hollywood.
I decided that I wanted to have my teeth fixed.
Nate Roman says politics is just entertainment. It's like football. Sure. Elections are just election rigging contests. And then when one person wins, the other person always says, we want a recount. They won't accept it. Now, again, I don't really want to participate because the voting public has been compromised. They've been stupefied with psyops. So here we go.
I think surprisingly well.
11 glass flowers outside Tree of Life are a reminder of the 11 souls lost nearly 2 months ago. Glass can break. Rabbi Jeffrey Myers says this community won't.
I grieve deeply the loss of these 11.
Okay, so the theory is that this is one of the actors from Sandy Hook. We've looked at it, and yeah, it's him. It's kind of funny. Anyway, let's get back on target here. We're talking about Trump, who's not any kind of a savior, even though he signs Bibles, which is kind of weird. Donald Trump will sign your Bible. They deify their leaders. In fact, if you look at the narrative with the QAnon thing, it very much parallels Revelations. You know, Revelations, you're waiting for the Great Awakening. They even call it the Great Awakening. And they're going to unseal the sealed indictments, so the opening of the seals. And then when they open the seals, we have a list of names. The guilty, the damned, you know, the ones who are going to heaven, the ones going to hell. So the sealed indictments that QAnon kept promising in this war between the deep state and the not so deep state would be revealed, and there would be a great awakening. And this would be led by Trump. So in many ways, Trump is like the second coming of Christ, who's going to open the seals, and there's going to be a big revelation. And then the good guys are going to take out the bad guys, Judgment Day. Just wanted to run this piece by you really quick. The Great Moon Hoax. So this is from August 25th, 2015. It's kind of an older article, but they just updated it. And there was a story that ran in 1835. There's a publication called Great Astronomical Discoveries. And they said they discovered in the celestial realm a higher and more universal science, that they figured some stuff out. And they started talking about what they saw on the moon. And listen to this. It says, they're looking at the moon through Sir John's super telescope that was said to have a magnifying power of 42,000 times. And they said, we saw some elaborate rock formations, bloody red poppy flowers, the first organic production of nature in a foreign world revealed to men. They saw brown quadruped that resembled a bison. And the astronomers also saw blue-tinted unicorns with goat beards and orb-shaped amphibians that rolled with great velocity across the moon's surface. So this is from a newspaper article published in 1835. And then here's the bat-like creature they described. Anyway, this was a series of publications that went out over a series of days. This story was just embellished, and they added more installments. So anyway, a lot of people thought this was real. The media circus that followed, they treated this thing as though it were real. It took a moment for people to, realize that no, you were being lied to. Nobody was discrediting this thing. It says here, not one person in 10 tried to discredit the story. Anyway, this is just an example of what I call auto-belief. Like, you might think this is absurd, that people just automatically believe that the moon is as described, in these fanciful stories. But people had nothing to go off of but what they were told. But it's the same mindset that gets people to believe in the Apollo lunar landing. And look, for 2020, I'm trying to make a few things clearer than we've ever made them. So it's not enough to say the moon landing was fake. Not at all. Because the moon landing being fake doesn't really move us any closer to the truth. Because usually you're left with a big question mark. Well, if it was fake, then why? Most people will say, well, they faked the moon landing to trick the Russians. Why? Because the Russians are going to the moon too? You see, it doesn't destroy the illusion, it actually preserves it. So this is why I'm against false flag theories. False flag theories don't destroy the illusion of a real attack. They actually embellish it. So the idea that they faked the moon landing to trick the Russians does not discredit the space program itself. So I think what should be stated instead is that they faked the moon landing not to trick the Russians, but with the help of the Russians, because this is how the oligarchs who control all the space agencies, how all the countries actually secretly are working together against you, the people on the other side of the screen. So the moon landing was fake, but the space program itself being fake is even more important to mention. Because then it can look like, well, the Russians didn't fake theirs. The Americans might have faked theirs decades ago, but the one that Israel just did was real. The one that Russia just did was real. No, none of these moon landings or probe landings or moon orbiting satellites were real by any of these countries. They're all fake. But somehow people tend to let everything else slide because they focus exclusively on the moon. Is the moon real or fake? And this is what I say with regards to the school shootings. People tend to miss the forest for the trees because they focus on Sandy Hook or they focus on a 9/11 instead of the entire wide array of psychological operations. So people will talk about the fake moon landing, but they don't include the fake space station in their assessment or any of the rest. Classic limited hangout. I want to address a comment really quick by Dread Matt at 53 minutes and 35 seconds. He said, "What evidence is there that Jeranism is a shill for NASA? I would love to see that." The fake ISS transits. That's all you need to know. The fake ISS transits discredit Globebusters, Jaron and Bob, and they won't talk about this. They've reacted multiple times. They even faked another transit for my benefit, but we've debunked transits and we know how impossible they actually are and how integral they are in maintaining the illusion of low Earth orbit. So fake ISS transits also would include Red's Rhetoric, who I debated. And if you don't know who Red's Rhetoric is, he's someone else who also fakes ISS transits when he's trying to debunk the flat Earth. Commenter puts a link to a YouTube video. Hey, if you're going to put a link in here, please do, but give me a blurb so I know what we're clicking. I don't click links. Let me see if I covered everything. The main thing I was looking at here was UN backs Russia on this convention. They want to kill free speech, and I think they want to kill free speech because if they don't, we're going to ruin their space programs. And who knows what else? The psyops we talk about are happening everywhere. It's not like it's just an American thing. Elon Musk will become the International Space Station's weed guy in March. Fake. Growing weed in space. Fake. Okay, look at this. This is something that I've been talking about from day one. That the scientific paradigm is in fact the old world order's paradigm. That this is Mystery Babylon dressed up like the Jetsons. Coated with sci-fi. But it's the same old system. And listen to this. Science and Kabbalah. Or Kabbalah.
When I first made the correlations between Kabbalah and science, I was stunned.
We do know that Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts, certain texts of the Kabbalah.
Well, the Kabbalistic description of creation is coming from a single little point, from a speck, and of having matter form and time and space form all together at the very beginning. This sounds very much to me like the description of the Big Bang.
So they're comparing the Tree of Life to the solar system, the Big Bang, and that what they're saying here is that science is discovering that the mystics had it right all along, but we just couldn't validate it until now. Praise science. That's what they're saying. That's where they're leading you. And this is just part of getting people to accept the New World Order religion, which was the religion in the first place, that they coded in science, they covered in science. It's not truly scientific. But it's interesting how interchangeable these things are. I was talking to someone yesterday about this, how you can pretty much see the correlation between original sin, carbon footprint, wrath of God, climate change, and in many other ways within the iconography and the stories, like the flood myths. So many of these things have been reinvented for the modern age. And I often say that astrophysics or theoretical astrophysics or astrobiology, anything having to do with space, is pretty much mysticism, and space is the new heaven. So these are your priests who are studying the heavens, and they're coming to the same conclusions that they would if they had just studied the Kabbalah.
I couldn't believe that the Kabbalists could derive these truths without really knowing any mathematics or physics.
It is certainly true that in string theory, the number 10 is the dimension of space-time for supersymmetrical string theories, and 26 for bosonic string theories stand out as a requirement of the mathematics.
All the things that could destroy string theory, all the things that do destroy every rival theory to string theory, they are all eliminated in precisely 10 and 26 dimensions. These dimensions are magic. We physicists don't know where these dimensions come from.
Okay, this is Mikio Kaku admitting that what they're describing in his own formula are essentially magical formula. It's magic. Mysticism. It's magic. Again, this is Mikio Kaku, who many believe is a deep fake. This one, I don't even want to say it right now because I don't want to distract from this, but I'm going to give you a link to this video.
Come from?
The Zohar says those things. It could have been a lucky guess. I don't know.
The Zohar speaks of impure fats and pure fats, and that relates very well to modern medicine's view of the two types of cholesterol.
Now you tell me, how come that's the only text of 2,000 years old can have that kind of information so clearly there?
They knew things about the universe that took us till now to discover.
They knew things about the universe that took us until now to discover, or are you guys initiating the public into this old world view? And this is what I'm saying. You, the general public, who are very familiar with outer space, you believe it, you've watched all the movies, you've been indoctrinated, Star Wars, video games, you believe in this paradigm, heliocentrism, and what these guys are telling you, you are actually inducted into the mystery schools, Mystery Babylon. This is the old world religion repackaged. These ancient sorcerers with their telescopes. And it's just given a new facade, which people don't even question. They think it's scientific.
I think it's rather intriguing that the Zohar mentions cholesterol and mentions the liver and bile.
What I like about Kabbalah is that it has a rather profound view of a creator, of a divine being that transcends all possible notions that we could have.
There can be an interface between science and spirituality.
There you go, science and spirituality. Now let me show you something here. Our aim is... Let me find this. This is a Rosicrucian thing. I think it might tie in here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so it's from Aleister Crowley, and this was a Rosicrucian statement. He said, "Our method is science, our aim is religion." And this is, I think, pertinent here because what we are seeing is the New Age religion, or the worldview of the New Age, the dominant paradigm, is one where they've taken the old worldview and they've given it all new explanations. So the people who fear eschatology or rapture, or are hopeful of rapture, are more than likely today going to be atheists or secularists than religious people, because they've accepted a new version of these old beliefs. But the method is science, our aim is religion. This was some Rosicrucian thing, but I see it here where they're talking about how sciences will get them to discover that the religions were right all the time, and it was this particular religion, or its interpretation of how creation began and our purpose in it. And I'm saying here too that space travel I see as just an allegory for ascending the Kabbalistic tree of life. It's a mystic endeavor, just like building the cathedrals or stonework is allegory in the Masonic system for spiritual advancement.
interface between science and spirituality.
The Zohar's notion that light is a realm of no time and no space is quite consistent with special relativity.
What's been stopping it so far are, number one, the lack of a good concept, and I think the Kabbalah is offering that now in the context of modern science, and two, a reticence on the part of both scientists and people in religion to mix the two.
It's rather amazing, this uncanny reflection of some of the most advanced cosmology coming from our satellites, coming from our atom smashers, coming from our blackboards, that are mirrored in the Zohar and ancient.
Exactly, mirrored. But then again, they're spinning it, because it's not that their findings are mirroring what was then thought to be an explanation, this archaic view. No, they're not mirroring it in that sense. They're actually just rebranding it. They're taking this archaic worldview and turning it into this scientific worldview, or pseudoscientific.
Kabbalistic texts.
So this is a topic that we've discussed at length, so just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, the Kabbalistic tree of life is the light on top with these 9 spheres that do relate to the planets, among other things. There are correlations, or correspondences rather. So this would be your tree of life. The top would be the, not the sun necessarily, but that would be the source of all light and life or whatever. And then we're here at the bottom, and that we're supposed to ascend it to find God or whatever. And this is the idea that man collectively needs to ascend the tree of life to reach this higher plane of consciousness. Spirituality, whatever. Just saying that's what it is. So then I compare that and contrast it with this, the solar system. And mankind going to space does represent a form of perfection, the perfectibility of man. We achieve green sustainability. We can now survive anything. We're post-planetary. But to be perfected, we have to leave this particular realm and travel around these other spheres. It's the same thing, I think. The obelisk has literally been replaced by the rocket, and the relationship between the obelisk and the earth god with his obelisk and the sky goddess is played out in the pageantry of the rocket launches that they perform for us. And those are religious rites. It's not for science, it's religious. And this is just affirming that. Science and Kabbalah, McHugh, Kaku, and others saying, yep, it's the same shit. Which we know it's, all bogus. All right, let's see. Vince says, why do they use that weird camera angle? Oh, yeah, on Bruce Lee. I'm sorry, McHugh, Kaku. Yeah, interesting. I didn't want to go there, but I have gone there before. But I want to assemble a little more information. Look, if you're afraid of that new Russian weapon that can travel 27 times the speed of light, this nuke that's going to kill us all, don't be. It's just a cylindrical blimp. All of the rockets and all of the missiles that you have been basically terrorized with your entire life, they're all fake. This is a balloon. There's really no other way to put it. Okay, until the 2nd, until January 1st, there's going to be 10% off at the Infinite Plane Society website with code 2020. I'm going to put the link below. This includes the art. It includes everything, really. 10% off, infiniteplanesociety.com. One of the ways we're supporting this entire project and think tank is through, well, a number of things. Right now I'm selling a lot of actual art prints, and who knows what you'll find. In fact, this is from MVP, who does much of our theme music. He did an image. David Hogg, Crisis Actor. Original drawing. This is a print on canvas, available in a number of different sizes. All right, I'm going to take off. Thanks for joining. And to all of you who called in, I appreciate it. I'm not really trying to create an echo chamber. If you don't agree with me, please call in. I don't have any particular dog in this fight on the world stage. We're criticizing this thing from the outside, objectively. All right, I'll see you all later. This is One-Eyed Jack and the Shells, Pope Elon.
It's like, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars?
Okay.
If we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think, given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.
Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. For we ourselves forgive everyone who is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation. Your mouth.